here at Life Pacific, repping LPU right now. I'm here in my office in Southern California. It's a beautiful day, but we have no students, only a few staff around. But I'm so grateful to be here. And we want your involvement. This is interactive. So if you don't have a journal, a pen and paper, or something that you can take notes on, you're going to want to get that. So because this seminar, I believe it will change your life. And it will give you tools that and answers that you've been seeking. And I really believe the Lord is going to speak to you. So make sure you have something to write with. Also, if you have questions, pop them in the chat feature, and I think that would be great. And Leslie, if you can make sure to just, if there's a question that comes up, go ahead and interrupt me and we'll stop, because your voice on this call really, really matters. So I'm going to start out really just with this scripture verse. We're going to talk about mental health. Mental health matters to God. You all know that you deal with all kinds of emotions and things that come up in your life. And I'm going to give you some tools today. And we're also going to talk about how I believe there are people on this call today that are called into this type of ministry. So John 10:10 is one of my favorite verses. The thief comes only to kill, steal, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the fullest. Every single person on this call was meant for the abundant life, not the depressed life, not the suicidal life, not for the anxious life, not for the cutting life, but for the abundant life. And so we're going to walk through how to get that abundant life that Jesus has for all of us. So what is mental health? Mental health, so for you guys to understand, includes the emotional, your emotions, your feelings, psychological, and social well-being. It also helps us determine how we handle stress, how we relate to others, and how we make healthy choices. We all are leaders of ourselves, and yet the way our mental health is determines the choices that we make. So it's about the whole person. And what does Jesus care about? He cares about the whole person. Not just that you do your devos, but he wants to know that you can have a vibrant life, that you can love your neighbor, that you feel like you belong, that you know who you are, that you can function in the world. He cares about all those things about our lives. And recently, you will have known that you hear a lot about mental health on the news. Artists like this that are actually very, very well known in the world, they have come out talking about mental health, talking about their own depression, their own bipolar disorder, their own anxiety. Which has done this? It has reduced the stigma of mental health. How many of you have been afraid to talk about your struggles? Yeah, right? Being depressed, being overwhelmed, being anxious. Because you know what? We believe that no one else deals with it. We believe, and you know what? A lot of teenagers said in a survey, 75% of teenagers that claimed that they had been struggling, all they wanted was someone to talk about it that had also dealt with it, right? Because then all of a sudden, I'm not alone. I want you to know right now on this call, you are not alone. Angie Ritchie has dealt with anxiety most of her life. And it's because of a lot of reasons. We're going to talk about what causes it. I am so good now, but I had to learn the tools of how to beat that anxiety. And there are tools. If Angie Ritchie can do it, you guys can do it. But this is real. This is normal. I work with teenagers, I work with young adults, and I work with adults and couples. Let me just tell you, most people are struggling in life with these things. So don't be afraid. It is time to talk about it without shame. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about facts and stats of mental health. Are you guys loving this already? Is this speaking your language? Okay, let's talk about the facts in the Bible. Okay, why I want to break down shame of talking about mental health, because you know what? The Bible talks a lot about mental health. Jesus said this. He said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. That Ariel may have peace, Asher may have peace, Haley may have peace, Leslie may have peace. He has peace for you, but in this world, you will have trouble. Okay, everyone on this call, you're going to have trouble. Things are going to happen. It's called sin. We're born into a sinful world. We're born with a sin nature. There's trouble. But he said, take heart. I have overcome the world. The difference between us and people in the world is we have Jesus that helps us overcome. But if we don't know how to access all that Jesus has, we're going to struggle. But I know that people can have peace in the storm. So I want to show you real quick, just in the Bible, King David defeated Goliath. He wrote most of the Psalms. He was troubled and he's battled despair. If you've read the Psalms, they're very depressing sometimes. All right. So number one, David struggled with despair and depression, bad decision making, but he was a man after God's own heart. God left him. You're not alone. Number two, Job in the Bible. He suffered so much, lost his whole family. His friends betrayed him. They're like, curse God and die. He had bad friends. He was in anguish emotionally, physically, and mentally. Job had a hard time. You're in good company. Elijah, right after they defeated the prophets of Baal, he was depressed, even suicidal. After he saw God's mighty works. Listen, you can have a mountaintop, but we hit valleys. Everyone does. These are heroes of the Bible. Jonah was angry. He felt despair. He was depressed. He was rebellious. But God used him. Jeremiah, a great prophet, he wrestled with great loneliness. And Paul, who wrote majority of the New Testament, this has to give you hope, people. He talked about a thorn in his side. Can you imagine living with a thorn in your side? That's painful. It's almost like you walk with, like Jacob walked with a limp. It's like you live with a pain, and yet he experienced true joy. Can you have both? Yes, you can have both. You can overcome. So I just want to declare over you, I'm going to pray right now that whatever you're going through, if you're feeling depressed, if you're anxious, if you're feeling hopeless, if you thought the world doesn't need me, or maybe you're like, Angie, I'm doing great, but I know people that are struggling. Let's pray for them right now. Jesus, we just declare your lordship over this breakout session today, Lord. And we just ask your presence in the room with every single leader, every youth group, every pastor. I just pray that you would be so strong in their midst right now. And Lord, we declare peace in the storms of our lives. We declare you are the Lord over depression. You are the Lord over anxiety. You are the Lord over suicide. We do not accept those things as our story. And Lord, we declare victory in all of our lives. And Lord, we thank you that you comfort our hearts. And Lord, we declare that we are going to receive equipping and breakthrough in the next 45 minutes today. We thank you and praise you in your name. Amen and amen. So the truth of the Bible, don't be afraid. The Bible talks all about that. If people are struggling, the Bible's our answer. Number two, so how common is mental illness? Okay, so you don't feel alone. Well, get this, mental illness are among the most common health conditions in the United States. The most common. More than 50% of Americans will be diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder at some point in their life. 50%. If pastors do not understand this, and many of you are going into pastoral ministry, you are going to miss the 50% of those you serve. 1 in 5 Americans, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, will experience a mental illness in any given year. That's 47 million people. We can talk about it. 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 through 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. That's 7 million. So when you have a camp of 400, one in every 6. Can you imagine? This is just straight up real, but we don't talk about that. We talk about Jesus, we talk about victory, we talk about all kinds of things, but we need to invite Jesus into our emotions, into our mental health. He cares about it. And if we don't talk about things he cares about, we're missing out on his heart to meet people where they are. Get this, 1 in 25 Americans lives with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia or bipolar or major depression. And get this one. This is a big number here. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. The second leading cause. The first is accidental death. So accidental death would be like car accidents or something like that. But the second, suicide. We got to talk about it. We got to care about it. It's about mental health. Jesus has to be invited into our psychology and our emotions, not just in our decisions. We have to integrate Jesus into our lives at every level, not just talk about Jesus. Because what's happening is we have the largest generation on the planet who is post-Christian. They don't even know if Jesus is relevant. Is that Jesus's fault? No, because he's alive and well. It's our ability to experience Jesus. And I'm here as one that says, I'm going to tell you that Jesus is the answer and he will give life abundant. But if we don't talk about these things, we're not going to make it, people. And we won't be able to spread the love of Jesus that matters to people. So look at this statistic. This is our world data, and it's very similar. This is the US data, but I have a graph that's similar that shows the global. But anxiety disorders in America are the #1 disorder. 6.64%. You guys are going to love this. Write this down. Anxiety is the #1 disorder. However, it is the most treatable. It's the easiest to treat. So let's not get catastrophic. But guess what? More bad news now. Only 34% of people who struggle with anxiety seek treatment. Only 34% of those who struggle seek treatment. So what does that tell you? Everyone's suffering, and they don't need to be. The second is depression, 4%, and then substance abuse. So let me tell you, God cares about mental health, and we don't have to be suffering. There are answers, and I'm going to give you some answers today. Are you guys liking this? Is this so far so good? Throw some notes in the chat. If you, or a question, I don't know, Leslie, if you're monitored, I don't think we have many. Oh, Dylan, thank you. Love it. Love the feedback. Makes me feel happy. Love it. Because I want to empower you today. Angie Ritchie is not the source of all things mental health. She's not the only person. As you know, Leslie alluded to it, I'm a marriage and family therapist. I have had tons of clients, tons of teens. I work with teenagers from every level. I've worked with Hollywood movie stars. I have a high level of actors, actresses, business owners, ministry, pastors, and I see healing every single day because I give them the tools and they use the tools. You are going to get something today that I need you to pass on because we need everyone to help spread the news. So let's talk about anxiety disorders. They differ from normal feelings. So anxiety disorders is not just, oh, I feel anxious one day. Listen, stress can be helpful. We're talking about persistent anxiety that often doesn't make sense. It's like a background anxiety where you always feel something's going to go wrong. Okay. Mood disorders is someone who is up and down, highs and lows and no stability, no oak of righteousness that the Bible talks about, no rootedness. Instead, they float all around. They're good and bad every day. You never know. There's no firmness in a person's life. And bipolar disorder, including depression, these are big. And then substance abuse includes drugs, alcohol. But I want to talk about another addiction that I believe people have on this call. And it's called technology addiction, social media addiction. Okay, that is real. And we here in California, we actually have treatment centers for social media addiction that people go into treatment for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, because they're so ruled by their phone. And this is increasing mental health disorders. I'm going to talk about more of that in just a minute. So more statistics. 8.8 million young adults report having a mental illness, and it spiked. Okay, are you guys ready? This is going to make sense. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. In 2007, with the rise of the iPhone, mental illness spiked. Suicide rates spiked. Sleep declined. Student sleep, students' friendship, driver's license, those all went down. Social connection, like intimacy, like friendship, went down with the rise of the iPhone. Technology absolutely contributes to mental health. And we're finding that more and more. See, we didn't know. It's only been a little over, 15 years? Not even that, 13 years. So this is a new area of study. But the best researchers out of universities and psychologists, the APA, technology is significant. And we have got to realize that if we don't watch our technology use, it is going to be our drug of choice. And you all know if you're online for more than 20 minutes, you don't feel better after 20 minutes. You start to get anxious. You start to self-loathe. You start to compare yourself. You start to stalk people. You start to feel bad about how you look. Technology can be great and be very useful. I talk a lot about this as camps, but it also can be the devil's playground to abuse you, to harass you, and to suck you in. So Leslie, anytime you want to stop me for a question, we can. 5.1 million adults reported as substance abuse. 42% of mental illness went untreated, and 87% of those with substance abuse disorders went untreated. So what does this tell you? Anyone want, maybe one of the panelists, anyone want to say, why aren't people getting treated? What's going on here? What are your thoughts? Maybe Shelly Ann or Haley, you guys have any thoughts? Asher? I see Bailey on the call. What do you guys think? What's going on here?
Yeah, I know one of the questions, Angie, that has come up is even, you know, having a friend with mental disorder, how do you even know that it's a mental health disorder? And then what should you do to help? So maybe that's part of it, is how do we even like decipher between, is this a mental health disorder or a personality quirk or whatever it could be?
Okay, I'm going to give you, we're going to talk about some helps a little bit later, but I want you to think about this. Do you feel down, lethargic, anxious, self-harming more days than not? Simple, isn't it?
I get stressed a lot, and I get stressed a lot and I fidget a lot.
Okay, so stress can be okay. What I don't want to do right on this call is label any of you with a mental health disorder, okay? That's not, we don't want to get into agreement with that, but we want to be aware of what's going on. Stress and fidgeting. Now, what I think has been lacking in the younger generation is a lack of coping skills. Not knowing how to handle stress, not knowing how to handle depression. When you're anxious, I'd like to ask you, when you're anxious, what are you thinking about? Have you ever challenged what you're thinking about? All of us have automatic negative thoughts. We have anxious thoughts that we can't control. And those thoughts control our emotions. Our emotions connect to our body, and those emotions connect to our choices. It all starts with our thought. So you have to determine, does someone have a disorder? Well, is there stress, is there depression, is there anxiety impacting their daily activities? Is it affecting? If it's affecting your daily activities, then it's probably a disorder. That means, are you slacking on school? Do you not want to get out of bed? Are you having conflict in relationships? Are you coping with bad behavior like addictions and escapism? If you are coping badly on a consistent basis, you need to consider your mental health. Does that make sense? So, does a person struggle more days than not? Does it affect activities of daily life? Is that helpful? What is amazing, again, everyone hear me. Mental health, especially anxiety and depression, which is the number one disorder, anxiety, is the most treatable. It is skill-based. But we need the skills to know how to get out of agreement with lies, how to get ourselves in agreement with what God says, how to stop unhealthy behaviors. And a lot of times I work with clients that have anxiety and depression, and they just have been doing it so long, it's a habit. Do you know that our brain can wire itself? If you think something long enough, if you do something long enough, you will become wired. And so the disorder actually becomes your way of life. It's a habit. It's what you know. And then get this, some people don't want to change. You know how many people that I know that are addicted to anxiety and addicted to depression? Do you know that there are benefits to anxiety and depression? Panelists, what benefit would there be to be anxious? What reward could you get from being depressed? Be super honest here. You can throw it in the chat box if you.
Maybe you could like use it to like get out of like certain like responsibilities or tasks. Like,
Oh,
I can't, I have depression.
Good.
girl, preach.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to show up. Someone said attention. Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely. Getting out of work. Oh yeah, Megan's preach, girl. She's a life alum. Attention, good or bad, is still attention. Absolutely. Some people just crave attention, and if they don't get it for good, they'll get it for bad. And it is a reward, and it's reinforcing, and people don't want to let go of that. This is what I do all day, every day with people. And when they acknowledge that they're doing it for reward, I get to then ask them, do you want to keep your depression? Do you want to keep your anxiety? Casey says a possible reward could be feeling cared for when you may feel neglected. 100%. 100%. If there's neglect in the family, children at a very early age, 2, 3, and 4, can develop a stutter. I know an exact case study where a little boy heard his parents fighting and we're talking about divorce. And at that moment, he developed a stutter because guess what? When he started stuttering, they stopped fighting and they focused on him. And it wasn't until he got to therapy that he stopped stuttering in one session when they found the root of that stutter. So we got to get out of agreement. Lacey says hurting themselves 100%. Yep. So depression, anxiety, we need to be honest because I'm going to be honest with you. I, again, work with teens. I think I have permission. Being a victim is really rewarded right now in society. Being depressed, everyone cares for them. Everyone, again. But is that the abundant life God has for us? No, it's not. There is so much more, but we have to be, the first step to healing our lives is admitting that we have a problem and admitting why we do what we do. So what we're doing right now in this session is we're increasing awareness. We are breaking the cycle of mental health disorders by bringing truth to it. Anna Marie says, sometimes I feel like I can't say that I'm feeling stressed or sad because I think no one will believe me. Okay, that's a big problem. So first of all, you have to speak it out. And if you don't feel like anyone will believe you, I want you to express and externalize your stress. I am feeling stressed. I am feeling anxious. But don't stop there. Now you have to say, what is making me anxious? What am I thinking that's making me anxious? And begin to dive deeper into what is causing that feeling. We feel feelings all day long. Sometimes I love my life, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I love my husband, sometimes I don't. No, I love him all the time. But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes feelings they're not always true. So you have to find out what is that, write it down, and then say, okay, is this in agreement with God? But if you don't feel like, I would say, Maria, tell someone and find a trusted friend where you can talk it out. Okay, that's really important. Trusted friends. Yeah, Jacob, you know what? You'd think it'd feel better to be at peace, but if you don't know how to find peace, you don't know what the alternative is. Because people grow up in all kinds of strange families with conflict. Exactly. As someone diagnosed with depression, anxiety, sometimes it's not for attention. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that. What causes mental health? Chemical imbalance. I had severe postpartum depression, and I didn't go seek treatment for 7 years because I was so embarrassed. So ridiculous of me. Carmen, can you re-ask that question? Because it's way, I don't know where it is.
Yeah, she had asked, what do you do if you have a friend who is cutting themselves?
Okay, a friend who is cutting, you cannot handle that. That's outside of your scope. So you need to tell an adult, and you need to break confidentiality. So Angie Ritchie can break confidentiality in a confidential client relationship when there is self-harm or suicidal ideation, or where there is a risk to the client. If you know someone who's cutting, you need to tell someone that can help. And cutting, let me just be honest with you, cutting is stress relief. Mm. It's to say, I don't want to deal with the pain of my soul and the pain of my trauma. So I'm going to cut to distract from what's really going on. It actually is very relieving. I know it sounds crazy, but it is just part of what we do. It's part of not, we don't all cut, but we do other things. So always seek help. You don't need to carry that alone. Okay, guys, I'm going to go on to some other things because I think it's going to answer your questions here in just a minute. Okay, so what causes mental illness? 3 things. You're not crazy, by the way. Anyone struggling, there's a reason. You aren't like just stuck with something in your life that just came upon you. There's a reason. Number 1, biology, your genetics. Some of us were raised in homes where our parents have struggled with depression or anxiety. Do you know that we pass on DNA, just like when the doctor says, okay, tell me your family history. Did your parents have cancer, breast cancer, high blood pressure, obesity? You know, you have to check off everything. We need to do a mental health history. And that's what we do at Life Pacific University. I teach marriage and family every spring, and we do what's called a genogram. A genogram is your family history. And it's like a family tree, 3 generations. And we talk about mental health. We talk about relationships. We talk about medical health, because we have to see all of our history. And guess what? When we know better, we can actually heal it. We can actually address it. It could be from birth defects, preterm trauma in the womb. Something may happen before birth that causes a mental disability legitimately. Okay. Number 2, psychology is another way that mental illness comes, whether adverse life experiences such as trauma or history of abuse. I'm going to give you a statistic. It's going to be shocking. 1 in 3 girls have been abused sexually by the age of 18, and 1 in 6 boys by the age of 18 have experienced some form of sexual abuse. That would be called a trauma. Okay. This also includes exposure to pornography, any kind of seeing something or experiencing something at a very young age. That is trauma. Now, we know we have the Wild West of the internet. And I know children that have been exposed to pornography at a very early age that has changed their brain and changed their heart and brought on so much shame. And I want to tell you right now that if you were traumatized at an early age, or you were given access to a phone when you had no capacity to handle this tool, I want to say, I am so sorry. And what you have had to endure is more than any other generation because of this. And what maybe was meant for good, the enemy has absolutely used for evil. And I have families and parents and that I work with that have been destroyed by early exposure. So you wonder why you're limping. You wonder why you are struggling or your peers are struggling. I want you to know that the devil is out to steal your lives. And he will do it through trauma that we ignore, and it shows up as addiction. It shows up as depression. It shows up as suicide. It shows up as rebellion and bad behavior. It's rooted in what? Trauma. Trauma. So that affects our psychology. And so if we as pastors, ministers, psychologists, if we can heal our psychology, it's what I do. I take everybody back to their childhood. All roads lead to childhood. And we heal those things, and then we get free. We get free. Okay? So psychology connects to mental illness. And lastly is your environment. If you were raised in a dysfunctional family life, if you have exposure to too much technology that is unhealthy, if you've experienced a tragedy, if you have been exposed to drugs and alcohol at an early age, or you have had bad friendships or been isolated, or you are told that you are worthless, or you are told that you're going to be an addict, or you are told that you're a loser, or you're told that life sucks and you will never get more than we did, that you're a victim, that the world is against you, that you're disadvantaged. If you're told these lies by people in your life, that will shape your mental health. By the way, those are lies. By the way, those are what Satan would do. Satan is the accuser of brethren. Satan is the father of lies, the word says. And he wants to declare over you that you will never, ever overcome. That is absolutely a lie from hell. That is not what his words say. If we want to talk about divine privilege, it's all through the word. We have divine privilege as children of God, and the rules of the world, the rules of our family of origins, the rules of whatever we grew up with, our past, our choices, our trauma, does not dictate our future. What the word says dictates our future. Okay, I just want to declare life over you. You are a child of God. You are a joint heir with Christ, and everything Christ has belongs to you. The storehouse of heavens is opened up to you. But you and me, we have to get into agreement with that. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so this is what causes mental illness: biology, psychology, environment. And if we understand this, we can begin to heal. So we have pain. The pain that's coming up, pay attention inward now. And early diagnosis is pain. Okay? Going to the doctor. Insomnia is pain, right? Anxiety is pain. Heart palpitations. So I want to ask you, what does your body feel? Because your body is a gift, by the way, and your pain is from the Lord. Your pain is saying, pay attention inward now. We got to go deep. We got to ask the questions. And guess what? You know what? 10-year-olds can answer the questions. 13-year-olds can answer the questions. 16-year-olds can answer the questions. Y'all are brilliant. And the enemy wants to keep you stuck in like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I hate my life. You know what I'm talking about. So where have you felt pain? Might not feel like pain like, ouch, I broke my foot, but where do you feel pain? Anyone want to share? What is pain? When you feel anxious or you're stressed, how does it show up in your life, in your body? Sadness? Nervousness? So I want you to start paying attention of your inner life a little more, because we're so focused on outside. If I can get you to be honest about where you feel pain, that's going to lead you to down the road of the root. Some of your anxiety, what you're feeling now doesn't have to do with what's going on right now, by the way. It has to do with stuff that's happened. Belief systems. Does that make sense? Let's talk about warning signs, and then I'm going to get on to more of that. Leslie, do we have any questions? I want to make sure we have about 25 minutes.
We do. We've got about 4 really good questions. So when you're ready for them.
Yeah, let's do the warning signs, and then we'll go on to questions. So
all right.
How do you know you're struggling? This pain is coming up for you. You guys, we are on autopilot. We just kind of suffer. Like I said, 34% of those struggling seek treatment. That means that the other 60% are just suffering. So how do you know if a friend's struggling? Changes in energy, changes in eating or weight, extreme moods. They're good one day, bad the next. So have you had friends that are all over the board? Maybe thoughts of suicide, feelings of anxiety or hopelessness, trouble sleeping is a big warning sign, loss of interest, apathy, risky behavior, changing friends. These are all warning signs. Anyone see some of these in your friends? Okay, so what can you do to support your friends? Number 2, avoid judgment. No judgment. But reassure them that you care and encourage them to get support. Say, have you talked to someone about this? Again, the stigma, right? So encourage them to talk to someone. Keep harmful objects away. If you feel like they're going to self-harm, if you know that someone's cutting, you need to report that to an adult. If you are a pastor on this call and you know someone is self-harming, you are a mandated reporter. You have to report. You have to report. So because you will be, you could be liable for that. So we have to be more invasive. We can't like, I find this a lot when I work with youth leaders is everyone's super polite about everyone's privacy. And I understand that, but we're talking about like severe issues here. I've learned about the younger generation. They don't really want you to be polite. They might, but they want to know, you know, that there's a problem. If you act like there's no porn addiction, if you act like there's no sexting, if you act like there's no self-harm, if you act like there's no crazy conversations in the middle of worship at camp, they won't respect you. Speak to the issue. Follow those girls in the bathroom while they're on their phones. Find out what they're watching. You know why? Because they need a rescue. Younger people, do you get what I'm saying? Do you agree? Like you don't want to be exposed, but gosh, aren't you waiting for someone to rescue you? And to say, I'm here and I get it. It's like Jesus at the woman at the well. He's like, I know your story. No, you weren't just married. You weren't just with one man. You had a bunch. And the man you're living with is not your husband. Okay, truth bomb. She was totally exposed and she left with total joy. He knows everything about me, but loves me. And I'm going to go tell the world about him. You guys are loved no matter what you're going through. And you're not too much. Your stuff is not too much. It's not too shocking. Lay it out on the table. Expose yourself. Expose your life. Bring it to the light and let God show you he's so there for you. And people are not going to run away from you. So take that approach to the people that you serve, okay? Okay? That's how I see breakthrough with the people that I serve, is they just want to know that you know and be honest. Okay, we have time for a few questions and then I want to get on to some of my other slides. So Leslie, let's go for it. You guys loving this?
You touched on this a little bit, but the question was, do you think taking medication is wrong? That this person takes medication just to function during the day and has felt a little bit of judgment with that?
Okay, so that's what kept me from going to the doctor, because of the stigma. That stigma is the fear of judgment and the shame. Medication is a tool that again, tool to help us. Medical science is a gift from the Lord. So there is no shame in medication, but medication without therapy and without psychotherapy and pastoral care, medication is not enough. It is simply a symptom reducer. So it's just eliminate symptoms. It helps to cope, but it doesn't solve root issues. Your pain is not just symptomatic. It's not just surface level. It is connected to a deeper problem. Okay? It's connected to brokenness and wounding and lies and habits. So when Angie Ritchie did this, I told you I was had postpartum and I didn't know what it was. I finally went to the doctor and I was so ashamed to admit what I'd been struggling with. And he literally like giggled. He goes, and he was such compassion. He goes, Angie, you do not need to suffer like this. You do not need to suffer. He goes, Angie, your brain has been so stressed out. Your serotonin levels are really low and you need a jump start. And so I did a 1-year therapy with medication combined with some counseling. And I'm going to tell you, after a year, I was able to wean off, and I weaned off with some new skills that helped me to cope, and I've been great. But I couldn't do the medication without learning new skills. That makes sense? Okay, next question.
All right, the next one is, how do you identify unhealthy stress and anxiety in yourself in this society where it is so normalized? And where would they find help?
Okay, so I would just start out with there's a great TED talk called Make Stress Your Friend. It's one of my favorite TED talks. It reframes stress, that it actually being a good thing, and it helps us rise to occasion. So we demonize stress. Like, we can't be stressed. Actually, stress motivates us, but when it becomes too bad is when we stop functioning. So I think I would like you to Google how to cope with stress and healthy coping with anxiety. Google it and learn some skills. So the problem is everyone loves talking about their stress, but people don't do anything about it, right? Because everyone wants to focus on the negative. Everyone wants to focus on what's wrong. And I would just say there's a lot of healthy ways to process stress. And I think, again, people, misery loves company. And as you all get healthy and you all start to have more peace and more joy, just be prepared to probably lose some friends. I'm just being real.
Very good. Hey, this is a good one, especially in this time of isolation where a lot of us aren't near our friends. We know that part of good mental health is having those relationships. So now that it's challenging, Grace had said that her auntie says, you know, we should go out when I'm depressed, I should go outside and get some sun. And she just wants some confirmation that that's a good thing to do.
Oh, yes and amen. That is amazing. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I think I have some good coping for you guys. So here's some tools. I want you to write these top 8. These are going to a strategy, okay? Number 1, I want you to talk to someone about what you're really feeling, okay? But not just talk. I want you to figure out how to feel differently, because we love to talk about our problems and not do anything to change. I want you to tell someone. I want you to identify the root of why you feel the way you do. And this is rooted in a belief. Like maybe you feel depressed because you believe that you aren't liked, or that nobody likes you, or that you, and I had that at camp. Someone stood up and said that they didn't feel that people like them. I do a lot of this at camp where we do live interventions where people bring up the lie and we address it right then and there. We find the root. And then we renounce it, reject it, and we bring Jesus into that. But a lot of our beliefs are faulty beliefs. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. I'm too much. I'm too messed up. And it's based on what people said about you. On the playground, a misinterpretation of what someone said, a wounding, and we actually live out these narratives. Also, identify the root. Some of you want the peace of Jesus and yet you live in sin. You want the peace of Jesus and the joy of Jesus and yet you can't get over that ex relationship that was super toxic for you. Or that you can't stop doing those behaviors that are keeping you from Jesus, that keeps you in shame. So identify the root, because there's a root that once you identify it, you can begin to get free from it. But a lot of people don't even have a clue what's going on. So talk to someone and consider, where did this thought and belief come from? This idea, this feeling that I have. Number 3, this is absolutely critical for you guys in this younger generation. I believe I've seen so much deliverance and healing, is discover yourself. I want every single person on this call to take the Enneagram test, to take their Myers-Briggs, their Strengths Finders, and their spiritual gifts test. Because if you don't know who you are, these assessments are tools for discovery. And I take all my students through this here at Life Pacific. We increase self-awareness so that we can realize, wow, why I'm struggling is because this is actually a gift in my life that I have not even understood, that I'm sensitive or I'm discerning. Instead, we shame ourselves because we feel so much anxiety or fear and those sorts of things. So I want you to take every personality test you can get your hands on to understand yourself. Self-awareness is the beginning and the foundation of emotional intelligence. And we're talking about emotions here, aren't we? So I meet with adults that they don't know anything about who they are, and now they will wonder why they struggle. So discover yourself, and in that you're going to find Jesus's purpose for you, because he made you. He made you exactly perfect. Exactly who you are is needed in this world. So discover who you are. Number 4, you need to choose good friends. Do you have friends in your circle that are bringing you down? You need to choose good friends. You need to choose friends that are better than you, that are farther than you in Jesus. You need to constantly be in over your head. You need to be with people you strive for, because if you're top of the food chain, then most likely they'll bring you down. So even if it's just one, One friend, someone that has a relationship with God that you love, someone that's more peaceful than you, someone that's more that's you think is smarter than you, someone that's, find those friends. Angie Ritchie has, listen, I have tons of friends on podcasts because I'm in the car a lot. I'm always stretching myself to be better. And I'm always challenging myself every day. So get some good friends. Number 5, unplug from technology. Okay. Some of you guys need to break and get rid of that addiction. And also the self-loathing. Let me also be honest with you. Some of you are probably following people you shouldn't be following. Some of you have people and relationships that are not healthy for you. This is a spiritual topic that I could spend hours on, just on technology. You want freedom in Jesus? Clean up your phone. Clean up your contact list with people that help you to rise higher. Do they make you happier? Do they bring you closer to Jesus? Do they help you make right decisions? Keep those people in your life. But if they bring you down, if they bring you back to the past, if they remind you of what you wish you had, those are not the relationships that you want to keep. I know a lot of youth that hold on to ex-boyfriends and girlfriends that are bringing them down. This is a spiritual topic. This is where, as soon as you start going, I'm going to tell you every time it's a formula. Every time things start going well with you and Jesus, that person's going to pop up to distract you. Can anyone do I hear an amen? Temptation is waiting. Temptation is waiting. So as soon as you're doing well, the enemy knows your weakness. So we have to close every door, close every window, and we have to get on board with Jesus. And it can be a lonely journey. And I think that's the thing is culture Christianity doesn't talk about this stuff. Cultural Christianity is like, we're free in Jesus and you know, we can navigate this. But guys, Angie Ritchie lives a very, very disciplined life when it comes to my connections, what I allow in, what I allow out. I have gone to so many routes in my life and I've had to realign with Jesus. I've had to let go of beliefs that have served me, but haven't served me. You know what I'm saying? There are lies that you all believe that you have been living out that are not serving you, and you have to get out of agreement with it. Okay. So that's, we could go on for days on that. So if any youth groups say, you know what, Angie, we'd love to do a session with you with just our youth group, I want you to reach out to me. I do this. I would love to do a Zoom call on special topics. And I'm going to tell you, God will show up like nobody's business. I see so much deliverance with the next generation when we dive deeper into this. And it's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Okay. Never get outside. Absolutely. Sunshine, vitamin D, sleep, the basics. Don't neglect exercise, beauty, nature, wonder, sleep to increase your mental health. Even if you go outside for 15 minutes for a walk, some of my most depressed clients, I say just 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, once a day. Gratitude. Some of you all have to change your language. You have to change your script. You need to be thankful. Stop complaining. We know what happened to Israel when they complained. Express gratitude. Make a gratitude journal. 100 things you're thankful for. It's easy to find negative things. That's not hard. That's easy to complain. It's easy to point out what's wrong. That's like no brainer. But why don't we do what Paul says? Whatever is true and noble and beautiful. Think about those things. And next, I want to really challenge you all right now, because this is where you don't understand that many of us on this call, and I am the first to raise my hand, that we often are in agreement with Satan. When we speak lies about ourselves, you're such an idiot. If I'm talking to myself, you're such an idiot. You're so disorganized. Nothing ever is going to work out. You're always going to have problems. This will never be resolved. If you say that stuff, you are absolutely speaking the words of Satan over your life. And you can't blame him. It's your problem. You're doing it. And so what I have worked on most of my life, what I work on with all my clients, is getting out of agreement with the enemy and speaking life over my life, to be prophetic over my life, to declare things over my life. that are true and right and good. And I'll say, some people will say this, Angie, that's lying about my life. You know what? It's about being in faith. You know, Abraham believed the promises of God before he even reached the promises in his life. He lived as if. Romans says that, you know, he called those things that weren't as if they were. We have to declare, we have to speak it. You know what? When we start speaking it, we start to catch up with those things. So stop the negative self-talk. These are really huge. Here's some negative self-talk is focusing on the negative, reading people's minds. I should have done this. I should have done that. That doesn't help. That's not helpful. Blaming people. As you look at that list, we're going to close up here in a minute. But which ones do you struggle with? Which ones do you struggle with? These are cognitive distortions, automatic negative thoughts. These are lies that we live with that are part of our life that are incredibly destructive. Right? Malia, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but that is so good. Reading people's minds, that is the devil's playground. He wants to create a story, make up a story that you actually believe. Okay, so write that down and work on that, okay, you guys? So I just want, we're gonna have some time for questions, but I want to tell you that in about a year, I think 2025, we're gonna be short in the United States over almost 500,000 mental health professionals. And I believe if you're called to pastoral ministry or care or you love people, this is one of the best fields. You could be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a family therapist, a social worker working with children, a first responder, an addiction therapist, a counselor, an educator. The mental health field needs men and women called by Jesus to really help the world. It's a growing field, and I'm not saying that you care, but I want to tell you that this is a great job if you're bivocational. You can easily, my husband and I, we have a tax attorney that handles all of our businesses and things that we do. And the average therapist that she works with to manage her accounts makes over $300,000 a year. To make six figures in the mental health field because of the need is very easy, very easy. And I'm not joking, and I know from experience. So if you're not, and I know that this is not about money, but I want you to know that this is a very viable profession where you can provide for your family and you can also live out your calling. And I just want to recruit as many mental health professionals as possible. Life Pacific has an amazing human development and psychology program. We have a counseling center across the street. We train therapists from all universities. So if you're interested, I want you to check out Life Pacific. I'll put or request info or reach out to me. But there's a lot of things that you can do. So we have a few minutes for questions, Leslie. Go ahead and shoot them over to me.
Yeah, this question came in early, and I know that you've hit upon this, but I think it's really good, just kind of as one of our last things to talk about. This person wrote, I am bisexual, and part of my mental health is that I walk with the sin and I have so much anxiety and stress. What can I do? But I would like to say we could probably insert anything that we are struggling with that God would say is not his plan, and finish that sentence as well.
Okay, so if there's any kinds of emotional, sexual, spiritual confusion, it's going to cause anxiety and we're going to have mental health problems. We just will. So I want to first encourage you to reach out and get into some kind of counseling to talk about it. One is you have to admit where you're at without shame. Jesus dealt with all kinds of people's issues and problems, right? Confusions, or even the reality of our life. You don't even, what you have to do is admit where you are and seek support for that. But what I know is that if you are dealing with shame and guilt, that is a barrier for wellness. So what I want you to do is everyone, I want you to tell yourself, I love you. I know that sounds maybe cheesy, but if you don't love yourself, you will always feel out of place in the world. You will always feel wrong in the world. Tell yourself, I love you just as you are. And I love who you are now, and I love the younger child in you. I love you at 1, at 2, at 3, at 4, at 5. I know, it sounds kind of weird, but do you see that how awkward some of you might even feel with me saying that? That's how uncomfortable we are with our own identity. And how can we go to camp and have this experience and yet be self-rejecting? Does that make sense? So first, I want you to say, I love you, I love myself, and say, Jesus, I invite you in to this part of my life. I invite you into my sexuality. I invite you into my addiction. I invite you into my anxiety and depression. I invite you into my wounds of childhood. Because we all have wounds, but guess what? We wound ourselves every day. So 1, Leslie, self-acceptance and talking to someone. That's huge. No more shame.
Excellent. Excellent. And then the last question before we need to take off. And as I do this, Angie, also one of the questions is how could they get in touch with you? If you could throw that into the chat for them, the best way for their youth group or youth leaders to do that, that would be really good. So she just put that in there for you. And last one is how do I find true peace in my mind? How do I slow down those rapid thoughts that the enemy tries to just keep berating me with?
Okay, so I want to say that is not going to be an emotional thing. I want you to do some skill building. We don't stop racing thoughts. We don't stop automatic thoughts by hoping and wishing ourselves better. It is not going to be something that's going to be done from a prayer time where you're delivered from your thoughts because you have free will over your thoughts. What you're going to have to do is begin to start practicing deep breathing. I want you to Google automatic negative thoughts. And there are so many tools of how to thought stop, how to journal, how to reframe, because when we have the thought, we don't know what to do with them. So 1 is slow down and breathe. I need you to write down your automatic negative thoughts. And then you need to look at them without judgment. Is this true? Is this right? And I want you to challenge it. But we have to learn the skills of managing our thought life. It does not happen naturally. We were not born with it. It's like we were not born to be on how to be married. I'm sorry, when you marry someone, that takes a lot of work. So this mental health journey is a lot of work. And guess what? No one's told you that. No one's told you that. So Google tools and skills, and I'll send you guys some resources. So I put my email, Life Pacific, also lifepacific.edu. It's never too late to go back to school. We have lots of options online and on campus. Also follow me on Instagram at Angie Ritchie, and as well as Life Pacific. We'd love to be in touch with you. But guys, this journey is not for the faint of heart. It's going to take work, but it is so worth it. We got to fight for our freedom. We have to fight every day, and I believe you can do it. So thanks, Leslie.
All right. Thank you, Angie. And I know you guys got a lot out of this. This doesn't need to be the end for you. You know, if you're struggling with some of these things, start with people you trust, your youth pastor, just whoever that may be. And Angie, thank you for giving us a lot of helpful tools today that can now lead us on. So, well, for all of